Ever wonder what the process for your first call with a nutrition coach would look like? Or if you don't want to talk to a nutrition coach, how you can figure out your game plan for improving your health and fitness moving forward? Hello, and welcome to the Fit Fatherhood Podcast. My name is Zach Bush. I am solo today. My partner in crime, Nathaniel, is just getting back from a networking event over the weekend. So you will once again have to deal with just me. Last week, Nathaniel and I talked about what it's like working with a nutrition coach. What can you expect? Different FAQs on that whole process and what that looks like. So today I wanted to go into a little bit more information on what a call with a nutrition coach should look like, or at least how I run my calls. And the goal is twofold here: to get you to understand kind of my thought process as I work through with somebody, but also to be able to take this process and go through it yourself and figure out a game plan for yourself. Now, using a coach is usually a little bit easier because you have a different perspective on it. Like the coach will have a different perspective on things that you're talking about, things that you're saying. They might pick up on something that you can't see, right? If you're in the weeds, you won't be able to see that far. But as a nutrition coach, I'm above the trees. I can kind of see everything from a high level and just have that different perspective. And so I wanted to dive into my process, my framework, and how we go through our calls with people, whether they're, quick 15, 30-minute discovery call or full-blown hour initial consultations. So again, at the end of this, I want you to understand my thought process, why I'm asking the questions that I'm asking, why I'm going it through it, the order that I'm going through, but also, again, to think about it on your end and be able to come up with a game plan for yourself. So grab pen, grab paper, kind of think through this. If you're watching this in the future, definitely grab it. You can pause it, kind of think through some of the questions that I'm going to ask, and really, again, be honest with yourself. This isn't a judgment thing. We need to know where you are so we can figure out where you want to go and how we can get there. So let's dive into it. So the first and foremost thing is, obviously, we're going to get on an intro call. If I know you at least some degree, whether you're a friend or we've been messaging a little bit, it's just to gather more information. But if I don't know you at all, obviously I want to get to know a little about you as a person, what you've been up to, what are you doing? But ultimately, we're going to figure out, why did you book this call? What is getting you thinking about making that step forward? And I've heard a lot of different things from different people. As you can imagine, people are struggling with different things. So it could be anything from, hey, I was running around with my kids and realized that I could only run around for 10 minutes before I had to take a break. And that's not something that I want to have happen to me. Or I was asked to go on this thing and I couldn't say yes because I know that physically I can't handle it. Or I got results back from the doctor and they say I need to change some things. And that's kind of what's gotten me thinking. And now I'm ready to take that action. So that question is, hey, what made you book this call is super important to me because it tells me a lot of different things just right off of the bat. Again, it gives me a little bit of information on who you are, but really what you're struggling with so that we can hone in on that. And that goes into ultimately the goal setting or the result that we're looking for. So the question I ask and the question I encourage you is, in a year, assuming that you took the time, the energy, the money, the effort, sacrifice, all that stuff to work towards your goals, what is that ultimate goal look like? What does life look like? Who are you with? How do you feel? How do you look? What does that look like? And what does success look like for you? And that, again, that's going to vary greatly on people. It could be a scale win. It could just be a look win. It could be a feel win. There's lots of different things. And I think the biggest thing too is, when I'm coaching somebody, when I'm working through somebody on this, I'm really digging deep. Why, right? I'm going to ask why a bunch of times. And that is really to get to the root cause of things. There's the initial reaction. And then it's like, okay, you feel this way, but why do you feel this way? Oh, I want to be healthier for my kids. Okay, great. Why does that happen? Why? I want them to be a good example for them as a role model. So when they grow up, they don't have to deal with what I'm doing. Okay, now we're really getting into that next level of, all right, cool. Like, everybody wants to look good, everyone wants to feel good, but really your motivation is setting a good example for your kids so they don't have to go through the struggles that you're going through now. And so we can take that, and that is ultimately what is going to drive you forward. It's going to be that thing that you can hold on to when it gets hard, when you hit that plateau, when you don't feel like doing what you said you were going to do. It's going back to that emotional response of things. This weight on the scale to go down or to go up, depending on what your goal is, but that's a nice tangible thing. But at the end of the day, just like a lot of other goals that people hit, whether it's weightlifting or business, when you get there, it's going to be short lived. You're going to be like, great, I hit that target goal. What's next? Is it a lower weight? Is it dialing something else in? And it's not going to be as lasting as you might want it to be. But that ultimate goal of, hey, yeah, I've lost the weight, but more importantly, I'm able to run around my kids for hours on end. And that's fulfilling. And that's what I want. And I'm able to show them what it's like to go to the gym and eat well. So that's the stuff that I like to focus on. That's what's really going to be something that I'm going to remind you of as we go through working together, as you work through whatever you're going to be working through. So again, that is the most important thing. That's what I like to start with. Now, after that, it's okay, great. The great goal, we can figure out what's next. It's what have you tried in the past? Chances are this isn't the first time that you've thought about it. If it is, great, and you've taken action on it and you've decided to work someone right away, I commend you, because that's not always the first step, but it might be the best step. And so if that's the case, cool. But if if this is the second, third, fourth time you've tried something or have thought about trying something, what have you done in the past? Have you tried certain diets, Whole30, paleo, keto, and how did those go? Or have you tried working with a nutrition coach before? What type of coaching was it? Was it one-on-one? Was it group coaching? Was it a challenge? And thinking through all of the things that you've tried and what parts of those were successful. Chances are something worked to some degree, and maybe the rest of it didn't, and that's fine. Knowing what worked and what didn't work is important, because now I can guide you and recommend things and strategies and different habits that work towards the things that worked for you that you liked. But I also want to know what you didn't like or what didn't work for you, because I don't want to recommend something that I know hasn't worked for you in the past. So really important to know those couple of things and something to consider. So again, pause this or jot a couple of notes down. What did you like? What didn't you like? What have you done that has worked? What have you done that hasn't worked? And that will help kind of create that whole picture. We know where we want to go. We know what we've tried in the past and what worked and what hasn't worked. So now we can look at the current state of where things are. And it's not just what you're eating. It's not just how you're working out. There's a ton of different things. There's really 5 different areas that I like to focus on as a holistic look at things. This is changing fundamental, foundational nutrition, health, fitness habits. This isn't get dieted quick, they lose the weight quick, right? I'm not selling you on any of that stuff, because realistically, could we get it to happen? Yeah, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for lifelong changes. So anybody who's like, I want to lose quick, I need to lose it quick, or else, it's not going to happen. Like, I'm going to, not be able to work with you. That's fine. I don't want to work with you anyway. We want to work with somebody who's building those foundational changes moving forward for the long term. So we know where we want to go. We know what's worked. Let's dive into current habits. So I'm going to dive through all of these areas, try to ask some questions, and then why I'm asking them, right? So the biggest one, most of the thing that people struggle with is the nutrition part of things. So what are you eating? What are you drinking? So thinking through this, if you have your pen and paper out, take a pause and say, during the day, what am I eating? What meals am I eating, and what time am I eating them? Again, that might vary day to day, week to week, but in general, for the most part, on average, I'm eating breakfast at 7 a.m. I'm eating lunch at noon. I'm eating dinner at 6. And these are typically what they consist of. And not just what foods are, again, estimate, but what and how much. Am I having 1 plate? Am I having 2 plates? How much of the plate is covered with protein? How much of it is carbs? So just being really honest. Again, we're not judging anything. We're not trying to criticize ourselves, but just gives us an idea and makes us more aware of it. Then, are you cooking that stuff at home, or are you eating out, or are you ordering out? And if so, how many days a week? And then not just what we're eating, but what are we drinking? How much water are you drinking? How much coffee? How much soda? Are you having any alcohol? If so, how many days a week? And how many are you having per day? Because the liquids can be the ones that creep up on you and really get you in the back end rather than the food necessarily. But that's a one that people struggle with a lot, and most of the time is the one that we're going to attack first. Next part is exercise and daily movement. So what does that daily movement look like? So I like to combine those, right? Because exercise, some people means you have to go to the gym, you have to be lifting, you have to be, running or biking. Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be a dedicated time to go to the gym, but like, what does your daily movement look like? How much are you walking? Are you walking at all? Besides, from your house to your car to work, and then back to those things? Or is your job manual labor? Are you walking around a lot through that? So just looking at how many days a week are you moving? How much are you moving? And what intensity does that look like? And if you aren't moving, have you moved in the past? Were you somebody who played sports in high school and college and that kind of fell off once the sport ended? And if so, what did you like? What did you like about those different things? And if you haven't been somebody that's been moving very often, what do you think you like? Do you think you're going to like to run? Do you think you like to walk a lot, right? Maybe you have a dog and you like to go on hikes. Like, what do you think that you're going to like? Because when we will go to eventually increase that movement, we're going to want to have an idea on what you think you might like, because we'll want to start there rather than just going blindly guessing. Think about it, give it a try, and then we'll come up with that game plan and adjust as needed. So those are the two typical things that we'll start with. The next few, sleep. Obviously, sleep is super important because that does affect your stress levels, which we'll talk about. It affects how hungry you are. It affects how well you're recovering from workouts. So it also does affect a lot of things. So when are you going to sleep and when are you waking up? Are those times consistent? And that will also tell us how many hours you're sleeping. And then on top of that, do you fall asleep easy? Or does it take you forever to fall asleep because you can't shut your brain off? And how well do you stay asleep? Because maybe you roll over in the middle of the night, then your brain starts going and you can't fall back asleep. So maybe you're in bed from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So you're getting 8 hours of rest, but you're really only sleeping well for 2 of those. And that can be a ton of things that's happening, reasons it's happening. A lot of times, if you're not exercising or moving a ton, just adding that in will kind of help fix the other areas. So that's why I like to cover all of these, because they do interact with each other a lot. Stress. So I mentioned stress in the sleep portion. So what is your stress level? I typically go on a scale of 1 to 10 just to kind of get an idea. 1 being like, I don't have any stress at all. Don't worry about anything. And 10 being like, I am constantly on high alert. My body's always ready to go. And that just gives an idea on like, okay, if that's happening, why is it happening? And what is it causing you to do? Some people stress eat. Some people stress drink. And maybe some people stress workout. I know I like to use workout exercise as a release for some of the stress. So thinking about it on that scale, and then do you notice anything that triggers that, right? Is it work? Is it kids? Is it family? Is it, relatives, friends? Like, what does that stress get caused by? And try to recognize that trigger. And then finally, support system, which is super important. You need somebody to be around you. Maybe not doing the same thing that you're doing, but to be accountable, to help you when things are not going as smooth as you'd like them to, or when you're just struggling with motivation. So what does that look like? And then that just is an overall, but what about close to home support? So spouse, kids, who's doing the grocery shopping, who's doing the cooking, who's helping around with that? If you're doing everything, how supportive would they be to kind of help you with those things? And the more people you can get involved, especially close at home, kids, spouses, the easier things are going to be, both from the actual eating and cooking, all the stuff, but also like staying close with the family and getting them involved, especially if one of the reasons is like, hey, I want to be a good role model for my kids and my spouse. Getting them involved and having them be a part of the process will just add to that family dynamic. And, with the Fit Fatherhood podcast, being dads, like, we want to integrate our kids as much as possible with that. So we spend most of our time analyzing all of those things, like asking deeper questions. If you answer all the questions that I just went through, and if you check out Facebook and all that, I'll keep posting the next few days of follow up on like the writing of these questions and all of that, just to kind of keep reiterating, because I think it's super important for people if they want to take the action on themselves. Obviously, I'm always here to help. But once we go through all of that, I usually have a handful of ideas of where we can start. But I want the client, the person that's coming to me, after going through all of this and thinking through things, being mindful, chances are a couple of things that pop into their head, or maybe come onto the call, you already knew what you wanted to start with. You just needed kind of that reinforcement. So what is the one thing based on all of that that you can start with? And I want you to focus on just one. You can write down a bunch of ideas. That's typically what I would do, but pick just one. And I like to categorize those into two separate categories. The first one is the low hanging fruit. And that is really just the easiest thing that I can get started today and be consistent with. It might not create the biggest impact, but it's something that you can start and implement quickly, consistently, and without any issue. And the other thing is the big kahuna. So that's something that might be a little more challenging to implement, still doable, but more challenging, but it will likely have the biggest impact. So picking those two options, most people, depending on their experience with nutrition coaching in the past and diets in the past, I usually start them with the small thing. We want to stack small wins quickly, which is not necessarily how much weight you've dropped, but how consistently you can do the action for a certain length of time. So picking that one thing that you can start implementing. And a lot of times it's just adding that protein in. Most people are just missing it and cooking one meal at home, whether that's a lunch or a dinner. So using that example, since that's a lot of the times the thing I start with, or that most people need to start with, is picking that. Okay, cool. I'm going to cook myself a dinner on Sunday that will then last me for 3 meals, right? 3 dinners or 3 lunches, whatever it looks like. So now you have your action step. Let's make it as specific as possible so there are no questions. So when are you going to pick the meal out? When are you going to go grocery shopping? When are you going to cook that meal? And then what days are you going to eat it? So, all right, I'm going to pick and go grocery shopping on Saturday. I'm going to cook that meal on Sunday, portion everything out on Sunday night, and I'm going to eat it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for lunch. And I'm going to have this meal. Be as specific as possible. That way, there's no room for error. There's no room for guessing. So, create that action step, create that specific plan, and then get moving on it. From there, that's when the accountability part comes in. That's when the check-ins come in. That's when I'm going to be following up and seeing how the cooking went, how the eating the meals went, and then what are the results looking like? How do you feel? How are your clothes fitting? What's the weight doing? And being consistent with that. You're not going to see results in a week, more than likely, and it might not even be 2 weeks. But after a month, we should start seeing some progress if you've been super consistent. And if not, that's what I'm here for. I'm always there for accountability, support, frustration. It's going to happen. It's all going to happen. That's what I want to help you through. So I hope this was helpful. If you need to rewatch this will be posted on the YouTube channel. Take a pause when the questions get asked, think through it. I want you to jot down all the notes, all the thoughts, your action step, your action plan. I would love to hear about it. Send me a message, send me a DM, post it on, if you're a dad, join the Facebook group, post it on there. And again, if you're watching this in the future, subscribe to my channel, the Fit Fatherhood channel as well. We will have videos out every Tuesday. And I hope this was valuable. If you have any questions in the meantime, reach out to Nathaniel and I. We are just looking to help as many people as possible. Appreciate you spending the last 18 minutes with me. Keep watching for future videos. And if you enjoyed this, head back and watch some of the previous ones.